Hi, and welcome to the first episode of our movie review show where we break up into teams. One team loves it, one team hates it. We're doing the Eternals. Make sure to like and subscribe. Everyone who comments gets a chance to win 2 free movie tickets through Fandango.
Is that a real thing?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I'm commenting on this.
Holy You might win.
I'm trying to see Dune again.
I loved Doom. The Rock was so good in Doom.
Let me just talk about Dune versus Eternals.
Speaking of Dune, our first movie was Marvel Eternals.
Marvel Eternals.
Brought to you by the studio that brought you the 2002 hit The Country Bears. And Thor the Dark World. Marvel Eternals is about... some guy at Marvel watched the Justice League and said, "Oh yeah, I could do that," and that was basically it.
Yeah, but to be fair, it wasn't Justice League. Some guy at DC watching Avengers going, "Yeah, I could do that."
It's basically that. The twist is, no team knows if they love it or hate it until right now. Whiskey and Cody.
Yeah.
Why did you love this movie?
Oh my gosh,
it was so good.
Oh man, where to start? I just think we've been waiting, anticipating the new wave of Marvel. Like we saw through Thanos, which is what, second age essentially of Marvel, and so we're waiting for the introduction of where Marvel was going to go. And Eternals was that. It introduced some new characters, some new plots, and also not a spoiler, but the after credit scenes. If you've seen a Marvel movie, you know there's after credit scenes. The after credit scenes, yeah, there's 2. That's don't leave. After the first one, you saw an introduction to what Marvel's going to become, and I thought they did that in an original way. One introducing characters that had, essentially been in Marvel for the last forever, 7,000 years. They also broke down and explained why they haven't been participating in the wars of the Marvel Universe for the last 100 years, since the inception of Iron Man 1. So I thought that was a original take, and they did something that we knew they had to do, but we didn't know how they were going to do it, and I think they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to like in it. I think the cinematography in it was actually really good. If you thought Suicide Squad deserved to win an Oscar for best makeup, then boy, this is sure going to blow that out of the water. The graphics were really awesome. And as somebody who has seen season 1 of Game of Thrones 3 times and nothing else from it, it was nice to see some familiar faces.
Yeah, it was a confusing sequel to Game of Thrones, I agree.
Yeah, I was lost half the movie.
What the hell is John Stark doing?
I want to also add on to that. If you enjoyed anything about Justice League, you're going to absolutely love this movie because your standards are very low.
And moving on,
okay.
Tanner and Gene.
Yeah.
Oh, I meant.
What made this movie so awful?
Jeannie Benini's got a great
Oh, here's the thing. If you've seen a movie and that movie has a trope in it, it's in this movie. They've watched several movies and taken every cliche that they can find out of all of them. And they put them in this film. It's kind of funny. You play a drinking game every time you find an ironic storyline. You're gonna have alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That dark, huh?
The Thanos explanation was particularly bad. Like, I'm sorry, but the idea of like we're their whole point is like to protect humanity, and then it's like, oh well. Literally all of Avengers happened, and you guys were nowhere to be seen, even though you were literally among the people. And did they disappear along with everybody else? Because technically, it could be one of the halves.
Like, I get that because, like, they're all-powerful aliens.
They also met and knew the Avengers, too. That's the thing that pisses me off. They admitted that they met and knew the Avengers.
No,
I would like to point out.
They admitted that one of them knew Thor when he was a child.
Yeah.
I would like to also respond to that. The Avengers is still a human war, while our grasp of humanity is just what's on Earth. The Avengers world has based that all of life would be humanity, or whatever you want to call it. So those wars were not of the gods, because the gods, which is what the entire movie is based about, was an entirely different war. Thanos was not a god; he was a Titan. So I don't see there's any reason they would interfere with that based off their own explanation.
I can let it sit for now, but if you watch the movie, there's no real way to get around it. It's choppy.
I fully intend to rewatch the movie. It was my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, very nice. It was my least favorite movie of all time.
I enjoyed it of all time.
Of all time?
I enjoyed it. Marvel's Eternals, Waterworld, like Shrek, like in that order for me.
You're okay with the Eternals beating out Waterworld, even though there's
no praise coming from me.
Okay,
I love Waterworld.
Question for Whiskey.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
How do you feel about the convenient cameraman?
The convenient
the
cameraman?
convenient cameraman.
In Waterworld?
No.
There were no cameramen in Waterworld.
Turtles.
It's
In
Gene,
Eternals.
we're reviewing Eternals right now. We know you love Kevin Costner, but please stay on topic.
Kevin
Hey,
Costner.
Dances with Wolves. Am I right?
Holy dude!
So Kingo has a buddy come hang out with him,
Uh-huh.
and he has how many cameras?
He's got a few cameras
Well,
because
as
Eddie...
my friends who
Uh-huh.
have like stuff, you
Mhm.
guys know those are expensive.
Right. Hey,
Actually, no.
Cody, I've got a question
Yeah,
for you.
absolutely.
Do you do film in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, I do actually.
Hey, how many cameras do you have? Do you have multiple cameras?
Yeah, I have like 3 or 4 cameras.
Wow, and how many cameras did we see him with?
Oh yeah,
3 or 4.
3 or 4
Yeah,
cameras.
it was like-
we actually
it
never
was-
saw him break out his phone camera,
Right.
which would have been a great backup if he needed it.
Also, it's almost like they came from money. And Cody, I'm not trying to say you're poor, but you're
Yeah.
middle class.
I mean, the entire plot line of Kingo. Kingo? No, it's just
Kingu?
no,
Kingo.
Kanga is one of the Winnie the Pooh characters.
Yeah, no, Kingo.
That's
you were right.
rude.
Man,
Kingo
I don't know
and
any of the
Rude.
characters' names. Then the entire plot line of his existence was that he was documenting the rise of the Eternals, essentially.
Yeah.
That said, he came prepared. As like, if you went to film a documentary where you're never going to be somewhere without service to go buy a new camera anytime, you would bring on minimum 3 cameras.
Yeah.
Totally fair. On that note, do you think
so?
you'd be a little more mad than
Mm-hmm.
the gentleman in the film when they break your camera?
Okay, really quick to move past this as well. There were multiple times where like we get it. They've been around for thousands of years. They speak a bunch of different languages. They literally spoke English to people in the Amazon. Like they literally did that. They spoke the
Yeah, they
wrong
spoke
language.
Spanish to him the whole time, and then
They spoke the wrong language to the wrong people. Like at least 3 or 4 times.
at the emergency where Druid goes, "Get out of here!" He switches to English.
Yeah,
I would like to highlight that the movie was made in America.
That's fair.
it was in the Amazon.
They were in the
I
They
would actually-
literally were in the Amazon.
I would respond to that with, it was probably in a green screen room and never in the Amazon at all.
I don't think that's a pro.
Yeah.
Well, moving on, what did you guys think of the casting?
Oh, I thought they did a wonderful job with it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Everyone? Yeah, I think it was probably one of the more, I would say, diverse casts we've seen in a Marvel film. I don't know if the main character who was gay was actually gay, but regardless, there's representation there. We also had a deaf actress. Is she? Do we know she's actually deaf?
In fact, she was actually Miss Deaf USA, I believe, for 2001 or 2002.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's super cool. So
So-
that's some representation that, frankly, I don't think we've ever seen, especially in a superhero movie.
Yeah.
So to have that I thought was fantastic. And then we saw people of, I'm sorry, you said he was Pakistan?
Pakistani, yeah.
I can't remember the character's name, or the actor's name, but it's Pakistani. We had some white people. We need some white representation. We had that. Fantastic. We had multiple people of color. And I mean, I feel like I don't really think there's anybody not represented.
On that note, I will say the main guy I thought was just the Winter Soldier again, and they're like,
Yeah,
if we
I
put him in a
literally-
different costume,
I think it was just a random handsome white dude, and they're basically all
Can
the
I-
same at this point.
Can I
in Hollywood.
ask you? Can I
Yeah,
ask you a
Ryan
question?
Reynolds and every other white guy in Hollywood.
yeah.
Danny DeVito.
I would love Danny DeVito in that role.
anything.
I just want to add on. His name is Kumail Nanjiani, and he's definitely not super funny, and he's definitely not like way funny, and I don't find him like crazy hilarious.
I'm starting to feel like you have just like a personal
I-
vendetta against him.
I think
Also, they didn't have to do young David Bowie as Sprite.
Scared, bro.
Do you care that much about Sprite, Gene? And you're gonna break the chair?
Conversely, I will say
I hate
that it was just so lovely to see Jake Lloyd acting again in something besides the Phantom Menace. I think one of the things that I really respected and enjoyed was Kanga's character.
Kanga? Loved her in Winnie
Still
the
Winnie
Pooh.
the Pooh. No, but one of the things that I really appreciated was the fact that he spent so much time prepping for this role, that he put on so much muscle mass, and like leading up to the Eternals and watching him like work out and like seeing all these like posts on like Instagram and things like that, like for me it like really hyped me up for the movie, because like as an actor, like you didn't really see the fact that he was like just shredded, because he was like it was kind of cool to see him like not be like shirtless. Like every Thor movie, you have to have this buff guy be shirtless.
You
for,
can tell
like,
though. You can
yeah,
see it
you
in his
can
arm.
tell. You can
see it in
tell.
his arms.
But the
yeah.
fact that he like that wasn't a pivotal point of his character, but he's like, hey, I need to do this because the character would be like this. But like he didn't get any like, I don't know, like there was no payout other like for that part. So for me, it was just like really refreshing to see like somebody like actually take this and go like, hey, this is going to be something I really want to dedicate a huge part of my life to.
Yeah.
And I thought that was awesome.
It was very much Jared Leto's Joker without mailing any dead animals to anyone, which I can admire. Moving on. I'm sorry. The earlier Marvel movies have an issue of feeling kind of like washed out, and I felt like this had a bit more color to it.
Yeah.
It was a bit more interesting to look at.
I think they looked at Power Rangers and went, oh, they can color code their superheroes? We're going to try that one. They used VFX elements as part of the costuming, where a lot of the superpowers were actually like done with external elements. So not that I'm like saying that was the coolest thing about like the characters, but the VFX looked amazing. I mean, they looked very natural, and the actors who were like Angelina Jolie's weapons were all VFX superimposed, and they looked super clean. And kudos to the actors and actresses for acting with those without having anything in their hands. Also, Faustus.
Festus.
Festus, I
No, it's
believe.
Faustus.
One of those had to be right. Anyway, so
It's
Faustus.
named after Hephaestus.
In your face, okay. So Faustus, I really enjoyed. His character was always building and tinkering. He was like an engineer, superhero, which was a very original superpower to have for someone who's a god, just who builds stuff. He's the Steve Jobs of the god world. So he was, but anyways, his entire character of like building stuff with his hands and then superimposing crap later. I was kind of impressed.
Yeah, it looked smooth. I was like,
made sense.
this is going to look dumb, and it didn't. It looked awesome.
Yeah, I was just imagining going like, man, him having to do that in front of a green screen and trying to build like, hey, what would it look like if you were building a steam engine with your hands in the 1400s? And he would
pull out a wrench.
Yeah. So, but I was impressed with the ability, his acting ability, as well as the effects looked great. So really cool.
Why was this cinematography so awful?
Well, I've seen Doctor Strange already, and I'm really stoked that they used yellow this time.
Ton of weird lighting choices, man.
You think so?
Yes, like a lot of usage of like lens flares, and it's not even a J.J. Abrams movie. Visual effects were totally fine, and they were good, and the coloring was really good. They didn't do Man of Steel where it was all gray for God knows what reason, but like that's kind of to be expected. Like they probably put hundreds of millions of dollars into this movie, and if you can't get color in there, then don't even try. So I don't know. But when we talk about like cinematography, I think it was totally fine. It was good.
It's just like I said. It just reminded me a lot of Doctor Strange. Like they did a lot of like the same. Like it just looked the same.
Yeah.
To me.
I forgot that it would be a totally reasonable thing for something that happens in the same universe to look super similar to something else.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
It's
talk
almost
about.
like that makes.
I thought
sense.
it was our moment.
Yeah.
We
Well,
gave
the thing
you
is,
your
let's talk about. It would be absurd. Practical effects are great when you're Captain America holding a shield, but when you're a god generating a weapon, I don't know how you do that practically. I want to say as far as cinematography goes, the goal and I'd say the first goal always is to not notice cinematography. It's like one of those things like if you notice it, it's probably a bad thing. And overall, you're just kind of encapsulated in the movie. You're watching the movie. You're enjoying the movie. You're not noticing the cinematography. Not that there was it was fantastic, but there was nothing about it that made you stop and go where is that? That was a clear director's choice. It was no, you're just watching a story, and they presented it in a way that felt natural, which is what you want to see in a
Not
movie.
once did I see a single boom mic.
Good point.
Dude, there's just not a lot of shit for us to hate on right now. This kind of sucks.
And that's why
good then.
Oh, it turns out we were correct the whole time.
Yeah, I think one of the tricky parts is when you're creating a movie that's already within a set universe where people have characters that they know and love and have spent the past 10 plus years getting to know and fall in love with, and you introduce a new story that with characters that have been around during this time period, you have to walk this really, really fine line of what's going on. Kind of like what they did with Rogue One and Star Wars. You have this gap, and now you have to fill this gap. And I think that this movie did a good job at that because, again, it kind of, without saying any spoilers, it explains well, where were they when everything was going to heck, So it's this thing of for me, as watching this through the lens of storytelling and writing, I go, not only do you have to pay attention to what's happening, but you can't retcon stuff because if one small mistake will retcon a huge thing, and then all of a sudden you've got this whole thing that you're I didn't even expect to do this, but now I have to justify why this person walked by at this time when in the timeline it should have been this,
I was gonna say, as far as story goes, to add on to that, the movie starts because again these are Eternals, so they're are they gods? Are they sent from the gods? I would say they're almost like gods, right?
I would
Lowercase,
say they.
Like
lowercase
Greek
g,
level gods.
Sure, I would say-
lowercase g gods.
Sure, yeah, Greek gods.
Yeah.
So they're essentially gods who are Eternals. So they've been there forever. And so what they do is in the beginning of the movie, like the setup is they show them in the beginning of time when they were first like sent to Earth to protect humans. And so you see like obviously they predate Iron Man, Thanos, all these characters, which is something I already explained. So they show like their timeline and what they've been doing, and then they kind of carry on, and then they throughout history, and show their effect on a few different things. And there are a few different even historical things, not to throw in any spoilers, but there are actually some a historical element that they broke down, like that they were responsible for, that was like something they used that was real, that they were able to use, like what part they played in it. I thought was really cool. Without ruining anything that's already been established in the universe, because we've gotten 15 years of Avengers, and so we know they're in that universe. So how do you explain 10 new superheroes that have been there for 7,000 years, but have been nowhere for the last 15 to 20 years? And so they explained that really well in a way that, like, we going into the movie, you knew they had to. Like, we knew they're Eternals. It's the name of the movie. We knew they're eternal. We knew they've been there the whole time. Where have they been? Like, how do we explain this? And so I thought that was something they went into. And really early on, so it wasn't a pressing question the whole movie going like, well, this doesn't explain that. Like, I think they came in pretty early on and set the precedent of like where they are, what they've been doing, and it made the entire movie, you could enjoy it without that question being there.
And just even like the characters themselves, I'll get to you in just a second, but even with the characters just themselves, like if you look at it, like just their namesakes, you know, like you've got a character literally named Gilgamesh. You know, so like you're gonna have that reference, the Epic of Gilgamesh, or you're gonna have like all these mythologies and stuff. So like even with our own knowledge of like mythology, whether it be Greek mythology or in the case of Thor, like Norse mythology and stuff like that, they were always there. And so yeah, it's going to bleed in, and over the generations, things are going to change, and it's going to go to myth because they're just kind of laying in the shadows and stuff like that. And so like if you're like a mythology and like history nerd like I am, like sitting there and being like, I get it. I get why you would do that. That's a smart choice, and that's a cool choice, because that's a callback to this weird Astrozorianism thing, you know, like.
Yeah, and I felt the Gilgamesh one was a little more subtle and like deeper of a dive, but also like right in your face. One of the main characters is named Icarus, and obviously a name that should be a household name, I would assume. He's pretty well known. I think that they actually, there was a bit where they explained the tale of Icarus and the Greek mythology, and how it was a story made up by another character that was implanted in history. And so it kind of creates this like foreground of like the knowledge as the viewer you already have going, okay, how do you get away with doing this? They explain it in a way that's comical, it's fun, it feels household, and it also feels like you already have some context of the movie, even though you're brand new to like watching the movie. And so I thought that was really well done. It made you enjoy a movie that you didn't have much like exposure to beforehand.
It is a very ambitious seeing, like in a universe that has Iron Man and Spider-Man, to have these characters completely separate from them have their own story.
Yeah.
And I do think the way they integrated it was pretty clever for the most part.
Almost want to counter it because it seems wrong. If your objective is to protect humanity, you should have been with the Avengers. It seems like a lie.
I'm also gonna say, like, we kept saying like it was really well done. Like legitimately, no bit, it was not well done. It was literally like a 15-second line where it was like, hey, so why didn't we help out? Like, what was going on with like Thanos and the Avengers? And it was like, well, we were supposed to be protecting humanity kind of in our own way. And it like, honestly, I'd have to get into the spoilers of why that's such a bad explanation, but like you will eventually learn what their directive is, and their directive is literally antithetical to what they let Thanos do.
Exactly.
Period. And they did not fix it. Humans fixed it, and the Eternals can't look into the future. Basically, what happened in Endgame literally would have set the Eternals back like hundreds of years, if not thousands.
It would have been thousands of years.
And yet, like, it gets explained. What it really is it was almost like they interpreted like it was just, they could have easily said like, hey, the person who is above the Eternals, which, like, spoilers, there is a person above the Eternals, right? Could have told them no, Jesus. No, but like could have told them, hey, don't mess with this. That's not at all what it was. It was just like, no, we let humanity fight their battles. half of humanity literally died, and your whole director
Actually, half
that
of the
was-
universe.
the universe. Fair.
And they just kind of let that happen, didn't
Exactly.
They did let that
It was.
happen. Yeah, and
it was.
Spoiler
But-
for Endgame, but
Characters.
The actual story was really good, but I will say that they introduced a complexity for like villains that like didn't really need to be there, to be honest with you. But again, that would kind of have to go into the spoiler territory. I would
Why don't we?
love
We're
to.
going to wrap up the basic review portion and get into spoilers. So if you don't want to learn anything about this movie, now's the time to head out.
if you haven't watched it yet and you plan to, maybe stop it here. If you have watched it and you want us to roast it and love it, then keep watching.
Can we-
Get to it because
Okay, let's move on into spoilers.
All
Is there anything specific that book? Why was there a sex scene in this movie?
it was pointless. It was just. I
It
mean,
felt odd.
Yeah.
In a world where there's a tree man and a raccoon man, why do I need to watch these people have sex?
so spoiler time.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
So
Go
time
for
for me to do my thing.
We're in spoiler zone. Go for it.
Cool. What did you guys feel about the Hiroshima moment?
Are we jumping right into Hiroshima?
I just want to get my
Yeah.
one thing that I did not like out of the way. It felt like it was in poor taste.
I think the point of it was to show the atrocities.
We do this.
I think it is to show the morality of it's to teach Fastus that it's like be careful because you were trying to push them far before, right? And then you have pushed them too far now.
Yeah.
They have. But
I think
I also feel like it may have just been done in poor taste.
I don't necessarily disagree with that aspect. I think the goal of it was to show that Fastus had been pushing essentially humanity to evolve like technologically, and while that was a reference point earlier on in like I'm trying to think what the years were like when they're in Babylon. Well,
It's
like-
500 BC.
it was like 500
Yeah, it was
BC.
500
They were
BC.
referencing that he was trying to like introduce like a steam engine very early on, and so and then Ajax had pointed out like we're pushing to Ajax, not the cleaning supply.
Yeah.
Or
the Greek hero.
Stronger than all Greece.
Or
Yeah, dude.
the villain from Deadpool 1.
He
High five, guys.
swung a huge hammer.
But yeah, I think that there was a moral dilemma of her saying like we shouldn't push humanity to basically evolve technology past like their basically ability to use it responsibly, and showing what he had like given them and showing like his influence on humanity to push technology, and then eventually showing how it backfired. And so Hiroshima was basically like a historical tragedy they used to reference to say like they were semi-responsible in regard that they had influenced humanity to create stronger weapons, and also showing the regret that Fastus.
Fast. I thought they said fast.
So many names, I can't remember.
It's called Fastus.
showing his regret to push humanity, because in his eyes, as someone who invented and creates like technology, his goal was always for the furthering of humanity and like the betterment. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the benefits of technology, not seeing that other people could use that and corrupt it. And so it was showing the moral conundrum that he had to come to terms with.
Yeah, but so this is one of those things that America is super good at doing. Okay, like America, love it, whatever. I'm not going to go too far into that, but like it's just one of those things where America does this amazing thing where we committed this huge atrocity, and then we can turn around and say like, oh my God, guys, everybody, we need to make sure that we don't do this. And like South Park said it perfectly, where like it's like the pro-war people and then the hippies, and we're just a walking contradiction. And the only thing that saved that scene from being just this amazingly tasteless contradiction is how good Faces' actor did during that time, because otherwise it is completely irrevocably tasteless for us to do something like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But again, the actor did a fantastic job, and like the gravity of it is cool. I will say that one of the movie's sins involves Ajax, who was there with Fastus. Ajax is one of the least personable characters I have ever seen in a Marvel movie, and they immediately killed her off and expected us to give a shit, and I did not give a shit because she was not even remotely human acting or looking like everybody else in the show. She was just, yes, my dear God, we are taking care of the humans, and oh, yes, Fastus, this horrible thing of which we have done to this planet, and then she dies. It's like, okay, cool, I don't really care. Just like for such an important character, just so unpersonal.
Well, I would say that was the goal of her character, because the thing is she was the only one who knew the goal of the Eternals, which was to bring about the Celestials. So the only evolution we saw of her was over 7,000 years. She was coming to terms with the fact of like, oh, this is a messed up thing. But she was the one also like over them the entire movie, pushing to like, don't interfere, don't do this, because in her mind she knew the goal of the Eternals was to bring out more Celestials, and she knew that the goal was to let the wars play out, let technology advance, because that was one thing they mentioned was that wars are what brought out faster technological advances, and that would like allow basically longer lifespans and more humanity over time on Earth, which would give more energy to the Celestials to come about. So Ajax's character was never to be relatable. Cersei's character is to be relatable. Ajax's character, her entire existence in the movie was to show up, enforce rules, and then to die. And not so we could relate and feel sad for Ajax who died, but so we could relate to Cersei's sadness who lost a loved one, and relate to Cersei who is the one who tried to like save humanity.
Well, the problem, and I would agree with that. The more I think about it, like the rest of them grew up under humanity, and that's all that they know. That's a great point. But they spent a huge amount of time on the sadness of Ajax's death, or Ajax ''S''s death, as if we were going to give a shit. It was like minutes of it, and like it was just way. They eventually showed deaths, and it's like, oh wow, like Gilgamesh's death seriously affected me, and they spent the same amount of time on Gilgamesh's death in the aftermath as they did with Ajax, and it was like, okay, but I don't really give a shit about Ajax, and it's 15 minutes into the movie.
I would say most of the scene of Ajax's death, and again, apostrophe S.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do, because that's all Ajax. I'd say the purpose of her death, or the scenes surrounding her death, were to show how it was affecting people around her, because most of the camera angles were actually on Cersei's face, not on Ajax. We barely saw Ajax, her actual death. And then we saw Sprite remembering dancing with Ajax, and then we also saw Icarus watching that scene. We saw Icarus not really affected by her death, in the initial sense, because later we learned that he knew she was already dead. But in that scene, we weren't seeing him realizing it. We were watching Sprite and Cersei come to terms with it. So I would say the relatability was never about we were supposed to care about Ajax's death. We were supposed to care about their connection to her and their humanity and the fact that they felt human emotion as love.
Yeah, I had a question for you.
Sure.
Because me and you both watched Squid Game, and
Absolutely.
would you relate Icarus to Songwook?
Oh my gosh, yes, that's totally fair.
That's. I just was thinking about that now, and it was just stuck in my head because
Cares
Icarus
about
is like he's cursed with knowledge,
Sure.
right?
Gonna go ahead and just plug my ears real quick.
Oh shoot, fair. I only saw
Guys, I'm not gonna go into Squid Game. You're fine.
Yeah.
He's just cursed. He's just a guy cursed with knowledge, and he's kind of stuck there.
And he's also the only one who's practical in knowing
In
what
his
has to be
application
done.
of that
Yeah,
knowledge.
exactly.
Yeah, right?
Totally can see that.
Okay, cool.
Except we're in the spoiler zone, guys. Donnie Darko dies at the end. Bruce Willis was dead at the end of Sixth Sense.
He was totally dead the entire time.
Haley Joel Osment can't actually see ghosts.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Darth Vader is Hayden Christensen.
Damn it!
So I think that there was also this. I really wanted to hate on the whole Icarus dying into the sun thing, but honestly,
Whoa! Spoiler
works out.
alert.
I do
in
want
the
to hate on
spoiler
that.
zone.
I do. I want to hate on that though.
Rose out.
I want to hate on Icarus's death so much because it is one of the examples of this movie picked every cliche in the freaking book.
Yeah.
And of course, Icarus is so sad. He flies into the sun. Screw this noise.
First of all, name one right now. Cliche. Name one other movie the main character flies into the sun.
No, I'm just saying it's the story of Icarus. He's the guy who flew too close to the sun.
Yeah,
died.
which was a legend that Sprite started, but it was to me that felt like fan service. It was hey, let's kill him this way because it's awesome. I loved it. I thought it was fun.
Well, okay,
I thought it was a bit on the nose.
In defense of it, if I had the ability to fly, I would immediately fly into the sun.
I mean, that's a great.
Main guys.
Celestials.
The Celestials. The Celestials. What's their whole thing is that they come in and they make suns and then they create planets so the sun is a huge key factor. Just like in one of the very first scenes you see, they walk to the museum, they see Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin had the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution plays out throughout the entire movie. The Eternals are not allowed to evolve. Mm-hmm. The bad guys, what are they doing?
They're
consistently evolving and learning and taking in all this information. So the entire time you're seeing all these different things foreshadowing what's going to happen, and it wraps it all up at the end.
everyone wants to look for like a deeper meaning in everything, and some things are just meant to be like artistic and beautiful and fun. And I think the idea of ending Icarus's life by having him fly into the sun was just like, hey, let's like do service to like the greatest like Greek mythology story, in my opinion. It's my favorite. And so in a way, it was just kind of like a beautiful way to end his life.
But also, like, you got to keep in mind that this is a Marvel movie, and the entire time within the Marvel movie, they are just making references to DC, which, one, I think is ballsy, the fact that Marvel is going, our stuff exists, and you're the stories within our universe. But the fact that they're comparing him to Superman the entire time, what's the one thing that brings back Superman after the death of Superman? Sending him straight into the sun because it recharges him. So this guy is further proving that he is not Superman because he didn't even come back when he went into the sun.
He didn't even come back from the sun.
He went straight into that.
He's a fraud.
I just felt like it was more like an Omni-Man thing than a Superman thing, but I mean that's fine. It's whatever.
I wanted more of a
Omni-Man is DC
One
anyways.
Punch Man thing.
No one was it.
Yeah, I do feel like they took away the choice on that with letting him flying to the sun. It really took a really good moment away from everyone watching because he is a traitor.
Yeah.
He killed their leader, and he deserved to die while he was shackled.
So really quick,
Not
really
John
quick,
Calvin who wants.
Really
Did
quick.
he even have a choice?
really quick. Oh yeah, fair Calvinism, full on. So, dude, I get all your references, man.
Whoa!
Sorry,
Dude,
Brennon.
okay, we're on the same page.
You guys are on different teams.
Yeah, I'm not a Calvinist.
Okay, but like, so here's the deal, though. Okay, let me pitch you guys a different situation, right? Because the obviously because of what Icarus does, it makes the
The deviants?
deviants. Yeah, so it makes the deviants way more powerful because it ends up killing like what 3 of the Eternals, and then by the time it gets 2 of the Eternals, and by the time it gets to Athena, it's like nearly killed her. And it's all Ultron looking and super badass. And then she kills it. Let me pitch a different thing, right? The tragedy of Icarus is that he flew too close to the sun, he flew too close to trying to help the Celestials, the deviant kills him, and the more powerful deviant is about to take Athena, and then she still kills that mother.
It'd be cool to have a deviant that was not pointless. Because I feel like him being set up, and I know it was a rug pull, but...
Exactly.
I kind of want to go on something here.
Go for it.
Okay, so here's the thing. Going on that bit, the deviant kills Icarus, right? The deviant is played by Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah!
And then the deviant's eyes.
And it laser eyes in different directions.
You could just do a Pennywise deviant.
He's looking there and there.
Yeah, you don't even know. You can change it.
Do you have a movie character you'd insert into this movie based on an actor?
Stuart from Stuart Little.
Yes!
Yeah.
He is a deviant. He's the truest.
I want to talk about Icarus's character. I feel like this idea that he was the antagonist is completely unfair. The thing is like the Eternals were sent with one task. They were created by a Celestial with one task, which was to bring about more Celestials.
Yeah.
The idea that Icarus is somehow the antagonist, he's not. Like, you're saying like he betrayed the team. The team betrayed the Celestial. He was the only one who was actually loyal. I would compare him to someone who's he's stuck in a situation, and while there's certainly, it's a conversation we were having earlier. There's a moral conundrum, sure, but to call him the antagonist based off the fact that he was actually the one who was loyal because his entire experience was indoctrination into the idea of what their goal was. The idea that he is the evil one, I think is super unfair to him as a character because I think what we saw is he was doing what he believed to be right. He wasn't a bad person. He was someone who was indoctrinated so far that he believed. He was doing, in his eyes, justice. To think about it, when you stop a Celestial from being born, yes, you kill humanity. But that Celestial comes out, it creates another sun, it creates another Earth, and it creates billions of more people. And then it creates another Celestial and billions of more people.
Yeah.
So by stopping a Celestial from being born, yes, you're saving the however billion numbers of people on Earth, but you're stopping the birth of billions and billions of planets. So it's a line. So Icarus is not the bad guy who tried to kill everybody. He's the person in his mind, he's the good guy trying to save the lives of billions of people in future worlds being born. So to look at him and say, no, he deserved to be punished for what he was doing. He wasn't doing anything wrong. We view it wrong because we're humans and we don't want to die that way. Yeah. But if you think about number of lives saved, he was in the right. And he was indoctrinated to believe he was in the right. So he wasn't, I would say he was never the antagonist. The entire story, the Eternals themselves become the antagonists. He was trying to save the future. And also, Ajax's character was becoming self-aware as she's been a key component in multiple planets being born.
Yeah.
She was recognizing, hey, maybe sacrificing billions of humans to have another god be born isn't a good idea. So it took her how many countless Earths being born to come to this term? Well, maybe Icarus was just one Earth being born away from that. Maybe he was another 7,000 years. That's how long this process was. So Ajax was coming to terms of like, we might not be the good guys after all. Icarus wasn't there yet, and so he was still loyal to the original cause because they all still worshipped. What was the name of the god? Do you remember?
Arishem.
Arishem.
So they all worshipped Arishem, and they followed him with like absolute fervor.
Yeah.
And but it was indoctrination, and so I think the idea to call Icarus the antagonist is unfair because I think it was just he was the good guy for the wrong side.
Because you'd also have to say that Kingo was the antagonist because he believed in the same thing.
Sure.
But he said, just because I believe this doesn't mean I'm going to try to stop you guys. So it's like it's not necessarily a thing of good versus evil. It's more of free will versus non-free will. At that point.
Agreed.
So it's a philosophical argument that you're having now.
So what's the protagonist? What's the definition of the protagonist? Or well, actually, who's the protagonist? Sorry.
Well, I would say yeah.
Who is the protagonist?
No, I would say there isn't. I mean, the only
United States.
The United States is the protagonist.
America!
Like, I would say the mark of a strong movie and a strong protagonist is let's look at Avengers Endgame. When we went to Comic-Con and interviewed people, we would like ask people like who is the who's the bad guy you most sympathize with, and the answer we got the most was Thanos. Like we have almost everybody, and it was because
Shocking.
right? Also, this movie had just come out, so it made the most sense.
Right.
But the thing is, it's like while we disagree with Thanos' methods, when we know his why, we go, I understand your why, I just disagree with like why that's your why. Like I disagree with where you came to the answer. And so I would say the mark of a good protagonist is someone you can still relate to. You can still understand like someone who's absolute evil just doesn't exist. Like we want to understand like what is like to them what is good, like what is more important. And so I would say that there wasn't necessarily a protagonist. We just had different moral dilemmas from different characters, different standpoints. Everyone was like the bad guys, the Decepticons, right? They were they were just trying to survive. They were just people like they were sent to Earth to dwindle the numbers, right?
The Deviants.
The Deviants.
The
I
Deviants.
know.
This whole time I was like,
I thought you moved on to Transformers.
I've heard their call and I just jumped on. I was just saying the Deviants are like they're predators who were sent to Earth to be predators, and they evolved and then started attacking people because their goal. Initially, they were sent to kill the dinosaurs, right? That was the whole idea. They were sent to kill the dinosaurs so humanity could survive.
right.
And then they basically evolved and were like, we're going to keep hunting and started killing bad people. Were they the bad guys? No, they were animals. Are lions the bad people in the jungle? No, they're animals. They're predators because of nature. And so then you send the Eternals, and their job was to protect humanity and take out the Deviants. Are they the bad guys? No, they're just taking out the animals who are hurting humans. And so now you've got the Celestials who are again like, so every character we see has a goal. They have like an eternal like purpose.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't a protagonist, and I thought that's what made it a good movie. Is we're just seeing like structures in we're just seeing like struggles in basic morality and humanity.
I'll just say it. Cersei is a protagonist.
Okay. So while we move on, I want to remind you that if Icarus' plan came through, there'd be no more Taco Bell. So sit in that
Why do you gotta ruin a good thing?
while we move on to Gene.
Thank you. Okay, so going back to what Whiskey said.
I don't even know what I said. Man.
Alright, so
I'm thinking
is
about
he
Taco
inherently an antagonist? No, but I do think his actions make him one. Icarus is an antagonist because he betrayed his leader, killed her. Alright, that makes him an antagonist. The reason why Kingo is not an antagonist is while he does agree with Icarus, he does nothing to fight his teammates. He does nothing to hinder them from saving what they think matters.
Could it be argued that Ajax betrayed him by going against their main directive?
I mean, yes, in a sense, but Ajax did not kill Icarus. Icarus killed Ajax.
He only pushed her off a cliff. She got herself killed by the Deviants.
I also just like if you just look at
He can.
if you just kind of look at the bare bones definitions of it, like it obviously focuses on Cersei's, and Cersei ends up becoming the leader, and it's like her fight and her struggle. So she's a protagonist, and anybody that goes against her is the antagonist, just by like pure movie definition. So
Sure.
like unfortunately, Icarus just becomes an antagonist. I agree that he is definitely way more than just like an antagonist, and I actually do like that about the movie is that they definitely tried to be complex, and it was complex. I just think it could have been done better.
I just think it's your actions. It's the way that you present yourself is what decides whether or not we like you, and whatever score is playing behind you, of course. So the
It's
thing
actually
is,
a fantastic.
Accurate.
but the fact is Icarus did kill Ajax, and that is a not good thing to do. She is one of the Eternals, and we are presented with the Eternals being the center focus of the film. So if you betray, you are therefore the jerk. It makes you suck.
Let me. That's
Or
right.
do
But
it. Do
I
the
mean,
antagonist
as
or
the whole
whatever.
picture, which you guys are delving into, and I agree, his directive, he's a soldier. He's a good soldier.
That's why it's a
You know,
tragedy.
That's his whole deal. But, I mean, is it fair to write him off? He betrayed his leader.
I mean, let's just say that Hitler's second in command murders him. Is that guy now the antagonist of the world? Because Hitler was the bad guy originally.
I mean, this is not a
I
really
think we're
great
starting to get into the
argument
weeds
present.
there.
No, but
That's
I'm
fair.
saying,
That's fair.
my point being, if the person who is perceived protagonist is betrayed by the now perceived antagonist, but we realize the protagonist is actually the antagonist, doesn't that make the antagonist not the protagonist? Because if Icarus's experience was based off of worshiping a celestial,
Right.
his objective was always protecting that celestial and doing what that celestial demanded. So Ajax was, in his perspective, the antagonist who betrayed Aramesh.
Yeah.
So he was only then going, I will carry out the orders that we're supposed to have. So if Ajax was originally a good person, or a good guy, and they all believed they were, and then she betrays their goal, that Icarus has to step up and be that person. So yeah, did he murder someone? But he also knew that what she was going to do was wrong. So it was this call of he had to make a move. He had to do something.
Yeah.
It's the same argument in Game of Thrones where you've got Jaime Lannister, who's the Kingslayer, but he recognized the evil of the king and he had to step up and stop the king.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah, but you betrayed your vows. He's like, yeah, but the king was going to literally murder all of King's Landing.
Is that in season 1?
Yeah, it's in season 1.
Okay. I see.
Yeah. So, so anyways, but again, so the moral conundrum comes down to Icarus only betrayed Ajax because Ajax betrayed the mission.
Yeah.
So was he the antagonist of the movie? Yes. He was the antagonist. Is he an antagonist? I don't think so.
I think he's just.
I think he is an antagonist, but we're kind of getting into the weeds for a different. We can totally move on. We've been here for
Oh, you're good.
feels
Yeah,
like
I just
forever.
wanted to say my one
We
thing.
live here now.
Yeah. So
Wait, I got at it.
I'll kind of.
So with Cersei being the main protagonist, what were your opinions about her? Because sometimes it kind of felt like she could fall into the background, or really she was just kind of there.
I think the goal of her was we saw power in Icarus. We saw strength in Gilgamesh. We saw just skill and a warrior in Athena. I think Cersei was showing that it's also a superpower to be empathetic, to care for people, to love people. Her superpower was never that she needed to be strong, it was that she cared for people. And I thought that, to me, we don't need 10 superheroes who are all super powerful. We need people who actually care about people.
Her power comes from touching things. So she would touch things and she would change things. Mm-hmm. So if you look at her from the very beginning of the film, everything that she was doing was she was inserting herself into the life and becoming one. She was learning the languages of the people. Mm-hmm. She was coming in. She was physically coming in and planting things and bringing water in and bringing life and bringing love into this thing. And so I would argue that her superpower of being able to change inanimate objects or whatever into different things is okay, yeah, I'm sure there's a use for that. For me, it wasn't the coolest out of all the powers, But I would argue that her bigger power that she had was that she was empathetic and she was caring and she was loving. Yeah. So where everybody else was oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, she would sit back and she would realize what's going on and be able to look at it from an empathetic standard. And with that, I think that's the point, is it's showing that there's power in this. And at the ending, when they take them and they go, I'm going to look through your memories and see if humanity's worth saving. They're hey, we're going to let this happen and everything like that. What you've done. But we're going to look through your memories and see what you see. So now you're seeing all these, her doing what she did, because she's going to have a totally different perspective than everybody else that they're going to be looking through their memories of, now has it become this situation of these Celestials now have to sit with the fact of what they're doing. Of well, okay, if we're essentially doing mass genocide of planets in order for these things to be born, we have to sit with the consequences of our actions now. On this, you got to see that One, they created the Eternals, so she fell in love with an Eternal. But then when he disappeared, she fell in love with a human, and you could symbolize that as her falling in love with humanity in a person.
Well, and also, like he had said, like he had to fall in love with humanity to get closer to her. Because to her, and that's the thing is, we look at her and go, maybe she wasn't the strongest protagonist. She didn't necessarily need to be, because she connected with people and like found the goodness in them. But because she was like loved everyone and like was loved by everyone because of her kindness, that's what gave her the ability to bring other people like with her. Like the other immortals who joined her cause were because they like saw what she saw, or they saw that in her.
And where you see Druig literally control humanity, you see her humble herself to become one with them.
Yeah.
So it almost becomes this whole like if they're playing up the fact that they're gods and stuff, she is representing the best in gods, which is the love and that humanity that's coming down. Whereas Druig is all about power and control and making things happen. So it's like when he had all the people controlling them, it's like, yeah, was he trying to protect them and keep them safe? Yes, but he took their free will away from them. So now, again, you're in that whole moral thing where it's like subservientism or free will, you know? And I think for her, she cared about humanity enough that she was willing to do what it took to protect them, even if it meant going against this person she's had this romantic connection with.
That's some really strong points. Do you guys got anything about Cersei?
I really like the things that you guys are saying, and if that was what I got from the movie, it really would have been like a 10 out of 10. Because holy shit.
Really cool stuff.
Holy shit.
I just saw a lot of like rose petals, man.
Well, like,
Awesome! You gotta woo somebody with rose petals to bring them
At the
close to you,
same
man.
time.
look, if
I don't want to fight your argument for you, but was there nobody on that bus?
yeah,
The
driver got up and he ran away. He was on a union mandated break.
Yeah,
guys, make sure when you're
He's
driving
just
past
trying to
any-
go to Dunkin' Donuts.
Just the fact that she
There was-
risked seeing a full bus, and not a full bus, but seeing a bus and be like, I hope there are people on
They
this.
address that her powers cannot
affect sentient beings.
sentient
yeah,
beings.
which
Her
makes
powers
it-
cannot, but flipping a bus and turning it into
Can.
flowers can launch
Can.
human beings
Yeah.
into
I mean, that can
buildings.
It would've
affect
been-
the sentient human
It would have
being.
been like something out of Invincible. where
Rose
it's just
petals
like,
were soft.
I'm just gonna say, hey guys,
While we're on the subject of powers, we'll get right back to that.
Yes.
You pointed out that they are not allowed to interfere with humans, but one of the Eternals' powers is strictly controlling humans.
Controlling humans,
And that is his
yeah.
only power.
can I talk about my favorite Eternal right now?
Go for it. Sure.
Druig is the best, and he's my favorite. And here's
Motherfucking
why.
Druig!
Because here's the thing: if you don't want people to hurt themselves, tell them to stop it. Then, okay, make them not hurt each other. Here's the thing: maybe free will's overrated. Here's the thing.
I will say the most uncomfortable thing, other than the weird sex scene in the movie, was the fact that I was sitting there and when Drew comes in his street clothes, me looking down and going, do I have to change or are you the one who's
Yeah.
Because I realized we were wearing the same thing.
Yeah, like going on with that, like his whole, you can't say that we can't interfere with humans, but we're here to cultivate humans, and then we're also not going to fight Thanos, but we're going to try to make sure we reach our quota with humans.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
And then it's like,
Not
oh,
all of
but
them
hey, make
do
sure we
that.
got enough humans for the Celestial to wake up, but we don't need to do anything about the big purple dude.
And we will give 15 seconds of time just to give this one bullshit explanation of like, no, we're not supposed to interfere. Like they had that dude, like it's Thanos and he kills half of the universe, and it's like they could have helped to stop him because that foils all celestial plans all over the universe too.
Also-
it's like it's so bad that they tried to write it out so quick and so badly.
Also, on that note, it ruins any chance of a prequel where the reason why you guys weren't fighting Thanos is because you guys were running away from Athena and she was trying to kill you.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That's
I would say the thing with Thanos is, I mean, they weren't necessarily talking to Arishem, right, every single day, so they may not have necessarily been clued in on what was going on with Thanos,
Yeah.
and then the world ended, they're like, oh, we should have done something about that. So they didn't know their goal was to farm humans to build
yeah,
Celestials.
but Arishem did know.
Yeah, but there wasn't like him and Ajak were talking on a daily basis.
My only argument
That we know
against
of.
He would reach
my
into
only
the-
argument against that is they could have said that.
Sure.
And all they said is
they
we
also
weren't
weren't-
allowed to interfere.
Yeah, they also worked together at that time, though. They
Yeah.
were just spread out.
But when a tyrant shows up on the planet and destroys half of everything in the
You would
universe,
think
you
they
would
would
pull out your
band
cell
together.
phone and be like, hey,
They knew where each
can
other
you
were.
still run really fast? Because we need powers.
I think
Yeah.
you underestimate how lazy.
I think Thor calls Kingo and goes, "Hey, dude, some shit's going on."
Well, Kingo already knew that Thor had it handled. That's why he wasn't returning his calls.
But the thing is,
Kingo tried to help by calling Thor. Thor's the villain here, which is why he hasn't had a single good Thor movie.
It kind of going back, if the story of Cersei is what you guys told me is what I saw, 10 out of 10 movie would have been incredible. I think that
Believe what I
when-
told you.
when people watch it, you will see literally the entire movie. It's like Cersei's just like, hey, I will defend myself. Hey, I am empathetic to humans. Cool. But the vast majority of her character arc is like, oh no, like Icarus is around and I loved him for thousands of years and ooh, check him out. And like that's the vast majority of her character thing, and that was what we were kind of talking about.
it
Yeah,
does
it's fair,
feel
it's
like
fair.
the plot is she gonna cheat on Jon
Yeah,
Snow?
is she gonna cheat
Is
on
she?
Dane or not? And
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
You wouldn't know.
It's hard not to find someone attractive when they have laser eyes.
That is true.
Would you consider that your closing thoughts?
yes.
Drew Grox. I'm done.
Good stuff. He's pretty neat.
It was a Marvel movie. It had superheroes, special effects, and it did not have Stan Lee. So that's our one set. Here's the thing, though. Yeah, Stan Lee's not alive today. I get that, and that sucks. But he was alive 7,000 years ago when the movie started. So why wasn't he there? Why wasn't he in Babylon?
all right,
Why
maybe
wasn't Stan Lee in Babylon?
All right, maybe
We'll leave it at that.
You can't exclude God.
And, it's-
Nebuchadnezzar this whole time.
and on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. So, who won? Who lost?
If I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a PG-13.
Stop scrolling. But for now, we'll decide the winner in the comments. You guys pick. Remember, every video.
Yeah. Also, comment below.
Every video, we pick one person who likes and comments the video, and we give them a free Fandango pass for 2 tickets. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Let us know how badly we destroyed them in the comments. We will let you know where to pick up your tickets.
Watch the movie and just
Thanks for watching,
agree with
guys.
us.